You buy a book, you crack it open. 50 pages in, you close it forever. You told yourself you'd finish this one, you needed the information. The reviews called it brilliant, but something happened between page 1 and page 50 and you walked away. You're not alone. According to Jellybooks, the industry's leading reader analytics firm, only 25 to 50% of nonfiction readers finish the books they start. That research, published in June 2025, analyzed hundreds of titles with 200 to 500 test readers each. Completion rates above 50% are considered very good. Above 75%, those are called exceptional. Nearly 1/3 of readers abandon books before page 50. 60 to 65% don't finish the books they start at all. 57% of all new books are never read to completion. The book sitting on your nightstand right now. Economists at the University of Chicago have spent decades studying optimal quitting behavior. Their research, spanning from 1973 through 2025, proves that the best decision makers are the best quitters. And when you quit at the right time, you maximize future gains. When you quit too late, you burn resources. When you never quit, you drown. That's what intelligent readers do in the first 50 to 100 pages. They're running tests. Is the author delivering value now or promising it later? Does the structure match the claim? Can I extract the core idea faster than the author delivers it? These aren't casual questions, they're filters. And they work. Research from Publishing Altitude, released in June 2025, shows that most abandonment decisions happen in the first 50 to 100 pages. The Jellybooks data confirms this window is make or break for your entire reader experience. You're not reading to finish. You're reading to decide if finishing is worth the cost. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Jellybooks Reader Analytics published in June 2025, which tested hundreds of nonfiction titles with statistically significant reader pools of 200 to 500 participants per book, and from the Words-Rated American Reading Habits Survey from June 2022, which surveyed 2003 adults across generational cohorts to map completion patterns. We also draw from Annie Duke's behavioral economics research on optimal quitting, published in her 2022 book, Quit the Power of Knowing When to Walk Away, and from management science, studies on abandonment decisions, and multi-stage projects published in 2019. Now back to the information. Sunk cost is what you've already spent. The $15, the 2 hours, the pride of choosing this book based on a recommendation. Opportunity cost is what you're giving up by continuing. The other book, the article, the conversation, the sleep. Behavioral research from the University of Pennsylvania and the Wharton School, published in the Journal of Marketing Research in 2011, shows that humans are terrible at this calculation. We overweight sunk costs. We underweight opportunity costs. We stick to losing paths because we've already invested. But intelligent readers override this bias. They've trained themselves to ignore sunk costs and focus on future value. Hillary Clinton's hard choices scored 1.9%. Most readers bailed almost immediately. Thomas Piketty's Capital in the 21st Century managed only 2.4%. David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest hit 6.4%. Stephen Hawking's own A Brief History of Time came in at 6.6%. These are smart books, prestigious books, books everyone bought. Almost nobody finished them. The winners? Donna Tartt's The Goldfinch at 98.5%, Catching Fire at 43.4%, The Great Gatsby at 28.3%. The difference isn't intelligence, it's signal detection. Business books and self-help books suffer from what researchers call one long, slow idea syndrome. Readers extract the main concept early and abandon the rest. James Clear's Atomic Habits and Cal Newport's Deep Work break this pattern. They deliver actionable frameworks in Chapter 1. Readers finish them. They become advocates. Signal 2, density without filler. Can you feel the research behind every claim? Or does it read like stretched content? Intelligent readers can detect when an author is padding, when the same point repeats across 3 paragraphs, when anecdotes replace data, when the structure delays the substance, they quit. The best nonfiction books treat readers like colleagues, not students. They compress, they cite, they move. The worst assume you'll stick around because you paid. Readers in the 45 to 54 age group have the highest non-reader rate at 60.9% according to the 2025 Test Prep Insight Survey. These are people with high disposable income, demanding careers, and limited time. They've learned to quit fast. They know the cost of a bad book isn't the price tag. It's the week you spent not reading something better. If Chapter 3 feels like Chapter 1, readers leave. Academic books written for gatekeepers, not readers. If the first 20 pages cite 30 sources but deliver 0 insights, it's a signal. The author is writing to impress peers, not teach you. Overpromised content. If the subtitle promises a revolution and the introduction delivers a blog post, trust breaks. You quit. Books that deliver on page 1 what they promised on the cover. Books that demonstrate expertise through precision, not credentials. Books that treat complex ideas as puzzles to solve together, not secrets to reveal slowly. books that give you tools you can use tomorrow. Jellybook's research shows a critical connection. Books with 75% or higher completion rates strongly predict market performance through word of mouth. Recommendations. Readers who finish books recommend them. Readers who abandon books don't, ever. This creates a selection cascade. The books that survive your first 50 pages are the books that survive the market. This is mathematics. If you read 50 books a year and you live another 40 years, you get 2,000 books. The Library of Congress adds 10,000 books per day. You're selecting from infinity. The question isn't what to read, it's what to skip. And how fast can you decide? Attributes, then young readers. We assess not just comprehension, but metacognition. We ask, do I know enough about this topic to evaluate the claims? Is this author advancing the field or summarizing it? Will this book change how I think or confirm what I already know? These questions run in parallel with reading. You're processing two streams, the content and the decision about the content. That's expensive. It burns cognitive resources. If the book isn't delivering value, you're spending those resources on nothing. What else could I do with them? Read 3 high-density articles, watch 2 expert lectures, have 6 conversations with people who've solved this problem, finish a different book that delivers faster. The math is brutal. If finishing this book gives you value X, and the alternative gives you value 3X, quitting isn't failure, it's optimization. Annie Duke, a former professional poker player turned decision scientist, studied this extensively. Her 2022 book, Quit, drew on 5 decades of research on sunk cost fallacy and escalation of commitment. Her findings: we quit too late, almost never too early. Even when we quit on time, it feels too early. That's because there's always some chance of turning it around. As long as that chance exists, walking away feels wrong. But the data shows the opposite. The people who quit strategically outperform the people who grit through. Duke's research, building on work from economists like Michael Spence and Joseph Stiglitz in the 1970s and 80s, proves that winners know when to fold. Chapter 2 repeats. Chapter 1 with a new anecdote. You're 70 pages in. Sunk cost says, you've come this far. Opportunity cost says, if the next 300 pages follow this pattern, you'll spend 8 hours learning what you already know. Do you continue? Smart readers don't. They've learned to recognize the pattern. They've trained themselves to cut losses. They've built a mental model that says, my time is the investment, and this book isn't returning value. They deliver small payoffs along the way. They respect your investment. The books smart people abandon don't do this. They promise fast value and deliver slow filler. They front-load hype and backload substance. They assume you won't quit because quitting feels like failure. Why? Millennials face student debt, childcare demands, and compressed leisure time. They cannot afford to spend 10 hours on a mediocre book. Boomers, many retired, have more time to invest. They can finish books that younger readers abandon. This isn't about intelligence, it's about constraints. Scarcity sharpens decision-making. When time is abundant, you can afford to finish bad books. When time is scarce, you optimize ruthlessly. Gender patterns show up too. 54% of women reported reading at least one book in 2023, compared to 42% of men. But women also show higher abandonment rates for certain genres. Business books, which represent 25% of adult nonfiction sales, show surprisingly low completion rates despite their popularity. Why? They often overpromise and underdeliver. They stretch one insight into 250 pages. Intelligent readers, regardless of gender, detect this within 50 pages and quit. You can sample 5 books in an hour. You can search for keywords. You can jump to the conclusion to see if the journey is worth it. Print reading imposes friction. You carry the book. You see its physical presence. That presence creates guilt. Guilt makes you stick longer than you should. Digital readers optimize faster. 50-page test. Number 1, business books that recycle common knowledge with new branding. Example, any book that promises to teach you productivity through a numbered system you've seen before. The test, can you summarize the book's core thesis from the introduction and first chapter? If yes, and it matches what you already know, you're done. The data, business books show surprisingly low completion rates despite representing 25% of adult nonfiction sales according to Jellybooks, June 2025. Research. Why smart readers quit. The opportunity cost of reading 200 more pages for 0 new insights is catastrophic. You could read original research. You could study case studies. You could talk to practitioners. The book is derivative. You leave. Example, books that start with childhood, move through education, cover career, and end with reflection, but lack a driving question or tension. The test, does the story pull you forward, or does it march through time? Do you care what happens next, or are you just witnessing events? The data. Memoirs and biographies comprise about 50% of nonfiction bestsellers and naturally benefit from storytelling momentum, but only when that momentum exists. The abandonment pattern. Chapter 1 covers birth through age 10. Chapter 2 covers ages 10 through 20. By Chapter 3, you're bored. You quit. Why smart readers quit. If the author hasn't established why this life matters to you by page 50, they won't do it by page 300. You're investing time in someone else's story. The contract is, show me why this story changes how I see the world. If they can't, you walk. Number 3, self-help books that promise transformation but deliver platitudes. Example, any book that tells you to think positive, set goals, and believe in yourself without providing specific mechanisms, research backing, or novel frameworks. The test, does the book tell you what to do, or does it show you how to do it? Are the recommendations actionable, or are they inspirational? The data, self-help books suffer from one long slow idea syndrome according to Publishing Altitude's Reader, Abandonment research from June 2025. Readers extract the main concepts early and abandon the rest. The pattern, the introduction promises a breakthrough. Chapter 1 delivers a story about someone who succeeded. Chapter 2 delivers the first principle, which is vague. Chapter 3 repeats the principle with different words. You've seen this before. You quit. Why smart readers quit? They've read enough self-help to recognize when an author is stretching a blog post into a book. They want mechanisms, not motivation. Tools, not testimonials. When the book doesn't deliver by page 50, they're gone. Example, books that cite heavily, use jargon extensively, and assume you're reading to evaluate the author's credentials rather than learn the subject. The test, after 50 pages, can you explain the core argument to a friend in plain language? If the book makes this impossible, it's not designed for you. The data, Thomas Piketty's Capital in the 21st Century, an important economics book, scored 2.4% on the Hawkings. Index, most readers abandoned it immediately. The reason, it was written for economists to cite, not for readers to finish. The pattern, dense citations, complex terminology without scaffolding, arguments that assume prior expertise. You're lost by page 20, you're gone by page 50. Why smart readers quit? They recognize when a book is performing expertise rather than sharing it. Academic credentialing requires a different writing style than teaching. If you're reading to learn and the author is writing to impress, the transaction fails. The test, does the quality stay consistent, or does it drop after the hook? Does each chapter deliver new value, or does it feel like the author ran out of material? The data. Nearly 1/3 of readers abandon books before page 50, according to Jellybook's research. This suggests the quality drop happens fast, and readers detect it immediately. The pattern. The book opens strong. You're excited. Chapter 2 introduces the framework. Chapter 3 tells a story that illustrates the framework. Chapter 4 tells another story that illustrates the same framework. Wait, this is repetition. You quit. Why smart readers quit? They've been fooled before. They know the game. Some authors front-load their best material to get past the returns window on Amazon and other platforms. Some editors demand story over substance. Some writers genuinely run out of ideas at Chapter 5. Smart readers detect this pattern within 100 pages and cut their losses. They're based on opportunity cost calculations. If you abandon at page 50, you've invested about 90 minutes. That's recoverable. If you abandon at page 200, you've invested 6 hours. That's a workday. You could have read 3 articles from top researchers. You could have watched a documentary. You could have had a conversation with an expert. The cost of quitting late is higher than the cost of quitting early. Smart readers also scan differently. They don't read linearly in the decision phase. They sample. They read the introduction. They jump to Chapter 3. They read the conclusion. They're looking for proof that the journey is worth the time. If the conclusion doesn't deliver insights you couldn't have guessed from the introduction, the book probably doesn't either. This isn't cheating. This is intelligent filtering. You're not reading for entertainment. You're reading for value. The rules are different. Books that cite pop psychology studies from the 1990s without engaging with the replication crisis. These patterns train your filters. The next time you see them, you quit faster. Your opportunity cost calculation runs automatically. This guilt is irrational. The money is spent. That's sunk cost. The only question is, what do you do with your next 6 hours? If you spend those 6 hours finishing a mediocre book out of guilt, you've wasted 6 hours and $15. If you spend those 6 hours on something valuable, you've wasted $15 but gained 6 hours. The math is clear. But humans don't run on math. We run on narratives. And the narrative says quitting is bad. The social reward system is backwards. We should celebrate strategic quitting. We should reward people who say, I realized this wasn't the right book for me, so I found a better one. Instead, we celebrate grit. We celebrate finishing, even when finishing is the wrong move. If you can extract the value in 50 pages, finishing the remaining 350 is waste. Some books give you everything in Chapter 1. Some books give you nothing in 400 pages. Your job isn't to finish. Your job is to optimize learning per hour. That metric determines what you read, what you abandon, and when you quit. Books with 75% or higher completion rates strongly predict market performance through word-of-mouth recommendations, according to Jellybook's data. But this correlation works in reverse too. If you're in the 75% who finish, you're more likely to recommend. If you're in the 25% who quit, you never recommend. Ever. This creates a selection effect. The books that survive your filters are the books that survive the market. The books you abandon die quietly. The ecosystem depends on millions of readers making these micro decisions every day. Which books deserve my time? Which ones don't? The aggregate of these decisions determines which ideas spread. If you write a book that front-loads value, compresses ideas, respects the reader's time, and delivers consistent quality, you win. Your completion rate goes up, your recommendations go up, your sales go up. If you write a book that promises transformation and delivers platitudes, that stretches one idea across 200 pages, that assumes readers won't quit, you lose. Your completion rate drops, your recommendations drop. You publish once and disappear. The market is a filter. Reader abandonment is the mechanism. Smart readers are the agents. Books that build slowly because the foundation is necessary, not because the author is stalling. How do you tell the difference? Signals. A difficult but valuable book signals its difficulty in the introduction. It tells you, this will be hard, here's why it's worth it, here's how to approach it. It gives you tools, it breaks down the complexity, it respects your effort. It doesn't scaffold, it assumes you'll push through because you're supposed to. These books confuse obscurity with depth. They use jargon without definition. They cite without explaining. They write for insiders and ignore outsiders. Smart readers can tell the difference by page 50. If the difficulty feels like it's teaching you something, you continue. If it feels like it's gatekeeping, you quit. The average American reads 12 books per year according to the Mastermind Behavior reading statistics. Only 32% of the US population reads books for pleasure. 42% of college graduates never read another book after college. These numbers are devastating, but they're also revealing. The people who stop reading aren't necessarily lazy. They might be traumatized by bad books. They might have learned that most books don't deliver value. They might have optimized all the way to zero. That's a failure of the publishing industry, not the readers. If the expected value of reading a book is negative after accounting for time cost, you should stop. The problem is, this calculation ignores the variance. Some books are terrible. Some books are transformative. If you quit the category entirely, you miss the transformative ones. Smart readers solve this by getting better at filtering. They don't quit reading, they quit bad books faster. Boomers read an average of 10 books annually. Generation X reads roughly 6. Millennials and Gen Z read about 4 each according to the June 2022 Words Rated survey. But this measures completion. If you factor in books started, the numbers flip. Younger generations start more books but finish fewer. They're optimizing differently. They're treating books like streams, not commitments. Sample, evaluate, decide. This isn't attention deficit, this is signal processing in an information-rich environment. Better outcomes? If you don't, you'll join the 57% of books that are never read to completion. There's no repetition. Every page earns its place. Readers finish it, they recommend it, it dominates its market. Contrast this with most productivity books. They promise systems, they deliver stories, they stretch one insight across 10 chapters. Readers abandon them, they don't recommend them, they disappear. Because Newport delivers actionable advice immediately. He defines deep work in the introduction. He explains why it matters in chapter 1. He gives you strategies in chapter 2. By page 50, you have tools you can use tomorrow. The rest of the book deepens and extends, but it's not necessary to get value. Readers who finish get more. Readers who abandon at page 100 still got something. This is smart design. This is respect for opportunity cost. Authors write books to build platforms, not to teach. Readers buy books to signal intelligence, not to gain knowledge. The abandonment rate reflects the gap between the marketing and the value. Smart readers close that gap by quitting. The ones that teach instead of perform. These books survive because readers finish them and recommend them. The rest die quietly, abandoned at page 50, forgotten by page 100. This isn't tragic. This is how information markets work. Scarcity isn't about supply anymore. It's about attention. Your attention is the scarce resource. The books that earn it survive. The books that waste it don't. You will abandon 90% of the books you start. This is not failure. This is intelligence. You're optimizing for learning, not completion. You're respecting opportunity cost. You're filtering signals. The book you abandon at page 50 might be terrible. It might be great but wrong for you. It might be great but redundant. You don't need to finish it to know. You just need to trust your filters. And when you find the book that delivers value from page 1, that teaches instead of promises, that respects your time, you'll finish it. You'll recommend it. You'll remember it. Get good at it. Quit more books. Quit them faster. And when you find the rare book that earns your time, give it everything. Quit strategically. The books you abandon teach you what to look for. The books you finish teach you what you need. Both matter, both are necessary. The goal isn't to finish more books. The goal is to finish the right books. And the only way to find the right books is to quit the wrong ones fast. You're building mental models. You're evaluating claims. You're comparing new information against existing knowledge. You're predicting where the argument goes. You're assessing the author's credibility. All of this happens simultaneously. This is expensive cognitive work. Research from the cognitive psychology field, published across multiple journals from 2010 through 2025, shows that reading comprehension isn't passive. Reception, it's active construction. You're not downloading information, you're building it. If it doesn't fit, you have two options. Update your schema or reject the information. This process determines whether reading feels effortless or exhausting. A well-written book activates the right schemas and extends them. A poorly written book activates wrong schemas or requires you to build new ones without scaffolding. In the first 50 pages, they're asking, is this book speaking my language? Is it building on what I know or starting from zero? Is it teaching me to think differently or just using different words for the same concepts? If the book fails these tests, schema integration becomes costly. Every page requires extra work. The cognitive load exceeds the value. You quit. This isn't about intelligence, it's about efficiency. Your brain is optimizing energy expenditure against information gain. Germane load comes from the effort of building new schemas. A good book minimizes extraneous load and optimizes germane load. A bad book maximizes all three. You're working hard, but you're not learning proportionally. Smart readers detect this imbalance quickly. If the author uses clear examples and builds step by step, extraneous load is low. If the author uses jargon without definition and jumps between concepts without transitions, extraneous load is high. You're spending mental energy decoding the presentation instead of understanding the concept. By page 50, if extraneous load stays high, you realize this book is poorly designed. You quit. Not because economics is hard, because this author made it harder than it needs to be. They notice when the author is unclear versus when they're missing background knowledge. This monitoring system feeds into the quit decision. If your metacognitive monitor repeatedly signals low comprehension, the problem seems to be the book, not you, you abandon. Motivation to read comes from multiple sources. Intrinsic motivation, you find the topic interesting. Extrinsic motivation, you need the information for work or school. Social motivation, someone recommended it or you want to discuss it. Competence? Motivation, you want to feel smart or accomplished. Different books activate different motivations. A book recommended by someone you respect carries social motivation. But if the book doesn't deliver on the other dimensions, social motivation alone won't keep you reading past page 50. Only books that signal value immediately survive their filters. Publishers know this. That's why book covers and blurbs overpromise. They're competing for attention in a saturated market. But this creates a trust problem. When the blurb promises revolution and the content delivers reformation, readers feel deceived. Trust breaks. They quit faster next time. Goodreads aggregates reader opinions. These signals should help you filter, but they don't always work. Why? Because the people who finish books and the people who review books are selected samples. If a book is terrible, most people quit early. They don't review. The people who finish are either those who loved it or those who hate quit and want to warn others. This creates a bimodal distribution, 5 stars or 1 star. The middle disappears. Smart readers know this. They read the 3-star reviews. Those are from people who finished but weren't amazed. Those reviews tell you what the book actually delivers versus what it promises. So, a book can dominate the charts while 90% of buyers abandon it at page 50. The Hawking Index revealed this gap. Hillary Clinton's hard choices sold extremely well. Almost nobody finished it. The market rewarded the purchase, but the readers didn't get value. This creates a feedback loop. Publishers optimize for sales, not completion. Authors optimize for platform building, not teaching. Readers buy books that won't deliver. Everyone loses except the marketing departments. A book that's cited in academic papers had to survive expert scrutiny. A book that's recommended in practitioner forums had to solve real problems. These are better filters than star ratings or sales ranks. If yes to at least one, you continue. Step 2, evaluate the author. Do they have credibility in this domain? Have they produced other work I value? Are they writing from experience or synthesis? If they're synthesizing others' work without adding insight, that's a signal. You might skip. If they're writing from deep expertise or original research, you continue. Does it show progression or just topics? Can you predict what each chapter will say? If yes, the book might be redundant. If the structure surprises you or shows a logical build, you continue. Step 4, read the introduction and first chapter. This is the 50-page test in compressed form. Does the author deliver value immediately? Do they show their work? Do they respect your intelligence? If yes to all 3, you buy and commit to at least 100 pages. If no to any, you either don't buy or buy with low commitment. You'll quit if page 50 doesn't redeem the weak start. You learn how much theory versus practice you need. You learn whether you prefer broad surveys or deep dives. These preferences aren't random. They're shaped by your cognitive style, your background knowledge, your goals. Smart readers know their preferences and filter accordingly. It's not for you, but you keep reading because everyone else is reading it. This is social proof, overwhelming personal judgment. Smart readers resist this. They've learned that most trendy books are trendy because of marketing, not quality. The books that endure are often quiet successes. They build slowly through word of mouth. They find their audience over years, not weeks. Viral books spike. They dominate conversation for 3 months. Then they disappear. Valuable books compound. They're read steadily over decades. They show up in citations and recommendations, in private conversations between experts. The market overpays for viral and underpays for valuable. Smart readers arbitrage this gap. They ignore the viral and seek the valuable. This requires patience. It requires trusting your filters over social signals. It requires being willing to miss the conversation happening now in order to have deeper conversations later. If you're good at picking books, the single book strategy works. If you're still learning your filters, the multi-book strategy is better. You'll quit 3 or 4 of the 5 books, but the 1 or 2 you finish will deliver more value than forcing yourself through a mediocre choice. This book for theory, this one for case studies, this one for inspiration. If one fails the 50-page test, they have backup.